For many years, we Unity developers have had to accept that by choosing Unity as our game development platform, we choose not to get all the new fancy technology goodies. For example, it has been 10 years since DirectX 12 first launched, and it took Unity until this year to actually integrate it in a way that is stable and useful. 10 years! And that is just one of the many examples where Unity's focus has been on making a massive versatile engine that supported as many platforms as are out there, stretching their team so thin that they have always had a hard time to create the specialized tech integrations. Luckily, one of the strong suits of Unity is its massive asset store with thousands and thousands of assets that try to add these missing features to the engine. However, it is very difficult as an asset store developer to make a living out of selling assets. So 90% of all the time, those assets start out working great, but over time they end up discontinued and will eventually end up broken in newer Unity versions. For me personally, the lack of proper anti-aliasing options has always been a massive thorn in my side. I absolutely hate those rough edges without anti-aliasing, or the cheap blurry textures when using FXAA, or shimmering, jittering, ghosting and massive blur with the bad temporal anti-aliasing options, and often other options are extremely performance heavy or a no-go when you're using Unity as your game engine. I believe that many of these missing and often comparatively simple features like anti-aliasing are essential to creating a good looking game with high fidelity graphics. So when Unity introduced the scriptable render pipelines, I got very happy with the prospects that both URP and HDRP were going to be focused more on new technologies. But as we now know, maintaining these two templates for their scriptable render pipeline was way too difficult for Unity. And they are now slowly going back to unifying them into one with the fabled release of Unity 7 in the coming years. Many of the updated versions of the technologies that already existed were even worse looking, like the temporal anti-aliasing in HDRP. It's unusable, it has been for quite a few years. And of the newly introduced technologies, it was even worse as their performance cost was way too high to be usable at all. But if you take a look at games like Red Dead Redemption or Horizon Zero Dawn, which use very optimized versions of temporal anti-aliasing, the results are absolutely stunning. Almost no shimmering, no ghosting, and well, because they probably also run a sharpening filter, the results are absolutely crisp. So we know it is possible. And it has only gotten better with the introduction of Upscalers. The absolute best side effect of Upscalers like FSR3, DLSS and XeSS is that they not only give you better performance, but they also automatically add the industry's leading and best temporal anti-aliasing. Many games also offer the options to run the upscaler at native resolution, not giving any performance benefit, but still making the game look much better by adding the anti-aliasing. I personally really like this, which is also why I've added the option to all my upscaler assets. For the last few years, upscalers have played a crucial part in bringing us a smooth frame rate, while developers have been pushing the boundaries forward of visual fidelity. Epic technologies like ray tracing are often still way too performance heavy to run without the help of an upscaler like FSR3. Unity developers are also often struggling with the performance of their projects, which is why I believe that upscaler should be a vital part of the engine. And okay, they did add DLSS to HDRP and FSR1 to URP a few years ago, and they have recently updated this in Unity 6 with a very old version of FSR2. Not only are they using older versions, the integrations are horrible as well, as they only work on Windows. While it is one of the secret powers of Unity that it has very good compute shading support, meaning that FSR3 can work on almost every platform out there. But no, with Unity's old-fashioned Windows-only integration, we only get, well, Windows. Now the thing that really baffles me is why Unity has developed their own upscaler, STP. There are currently so many platform-independent upscalers already out there, like FSR3, SDSR2 and the upcoming AASR, to name a few. Why haven't they learned that they can just better focus on integrating technologies rather than having to reinvent the wheel altogether again? Unity, you don't have the time and manpower to build all the tech yourself. And look, once again it happened. Even before STP got finished, Unity got rid of the developer that was working on it. And ever since, they also stopped the whole marketing push on the new feature. STP has been released together with Unity 6, but I foresee that they will just drop it again in the future or just ignore it going forward. And you can already see the signs of this happening in the HDRP source code, where newer features added to HDRP do not take STP into account, basically breaking the whole STP integration right after it's been introduced. So how to deal with all of this? Is it even possible to get that ultra high visual fidelity, or should you switch to Unreal if you really want those epic graphics? Well, I do think Unreal makes things a lot easier because they let you start out with much better graphics from the moment you create an empty project. However, now that I've been fighting with Unity for over 10 years, I did learn a few tips and tricks. Number 1 is only use assets from the asset store developers that have been around for a few years and offer good documentation. You should still buy and try out every asset that you want, of course, but just keep in mind that if you only pay $30 for something, the chances are high that the developer will never make enough money to be able to keep supporting it in the future. In short, just like how you should always use an LTS Unity version for a production-ready project, you should also try to find asset store developers who provide long-term support for their assets. And number 2, don't try to rely too much on Unity's experimental tech. Lately, their support has dropped very soon after they just released a new feature. Things like the adaptive probe volume system may look really epic, but if you dive into the code, you see that it's not really fully integrated into Unity yet. And number 3, build stuff yourself. Now, this is a little bit of a tricky tip because, in my past experience, this has been a real hit and miss. Sometimes I wasted weeks or even months of development time to find out that the tool that I wanted to create was absolutely shit. Other times, I invested time and the results were absolutely fantastic, like creating an implementation of FSR2 for Unity was bloody brilliant, but I've also wasted many hours of creating a build server tool which ended up being extremely buggy and, an absolute waste of time. And lastly, you can always just realize you don't need those epic graphics. I mean, ask yourself if the graphic fidelity actually makes your game better. Maybe all you need to do is just invest more time in making your game great. A good way to know for sure is to just test it with a variety of people from your target audience. Let them play a few demos with different quality settings and ask them if they were bothered by the difference in visual fidelity. If they did, then maybe you need to invest more time in making your game look top-notch. But if they didn't, then maybe just leave all the tech alone. But I guess it really depends on your personal preference as well. Just make sure that you don't get lost in the rabbit hole of engine technologies and waste away a big chunk of your development time and budget, as I have often done, way too often. Which reminds me that we're almost at the end of 2024 and that I still have a challenge to succeed at. Spoiler alert! I'm going to fail miserably, but more on that next week. So please take care, and if you'd like this video, please like, dislike or subscribe, and hope to see you again next time.
Lines of code are weaving dreams, pixels bursting at the seams. Virtual world is falling down. will drown. Scripts are tangled in the mesh. Textual stretching kinda fresh. Icons lost within the haze. Gameplay trapped inside a maze. Broken features everywhere. Game devs pulling out their hair. Fractured worlds and empty skies. Error windows in our eyes. Shaders flicker like a flame. Polygons lost in the game. Collision glitch we're running through. Bouncing off, we can't break through. Beta testing is a storm. Code reforming from the norm. Patch it up, but still it breaks. Tech's rebellion never shakes. Broken features everywhere. Game devs pulling out their hair. Fractured worlds and empty skies. Error windows in our eyes. Lines of code are weaving dreams. Pixels bursting at the seams. Virtual world is falling down. In the chaos we will drown. Scripts are tangled in the mesh. Texture stretching kinda fresh. Icons lost within the haze. Gameplay trapped inside a